Hello everyone, welcome to Life on the Hulls. My name's Ross. I'm building a 40-foot composite fiberglass catamaran to ultimately take off and go cruising. I've always wanted to build a boat, and I didn't realise I was going to be building effectively two 40-foot yachts when I took on this project. But for the last couple of episodes I've been dealing with a companionway module that has seen its place in the starboard hull, and I'm going to come into a couple more problems I've had with that this week. But later on I'm going to get in and complete some of the blackwater bilges. There's quite a bit going on in this one. Please like the episode, don't forget to subscribe, and let's get into it, everyone. You know, as you go through a project like this, you try not to make too many mistakes. You try to sort of think things through a month, 2 months, 6 months in advance, and made a mistake. It's not a big one, but it's big enough to really disappoint you. Look, the issue with this foam core, adding foam to this hull, is going to come back to bite me for probably till the end of time. But this module here, the stern section or the midsection of the starboard side has been an issue pretty much all along, because of the bridge deck now has 30 mils of foam core, and that means that that area there is actually 30 mils higher than it was originally, probably 25 mils. It's now coming back to bite me here. You can see here I've actually had to prop this module up by about 30 mil, and the reason why, or about an inch and a bit, the reason why is because it's such a small module. I wasn't able to ascertain the exact height of this floor based on the fact that I'd raised that up by 30 mil. So this is a small section. It's only about an 8-foot section of floor above my fuel tank. So I'm going to have to actually raise it by 30 mil. And the reason why is that I need to get that top of that companionway, that staircase there, has to be level with that, so that I don't have any sort of drop down from the bridge deck to the stair, then to the first stair. I want to keep that all level because that's going to be most visible. So you can see here I've actually propped this module up. Now that is dead level where it's sitting there, and I've actually put this bulkhead template back in just to get everything square and make sure everything fits. So this here, which is the fuel tank underneath, I thought was complete. I'm going to have to add a second angle under here, and then across the top of the bulkheads I'll have to put an extra piece of padding or another angle. I'm not really sure how I'm going to do that yet, but I'll put the angle in today. I'll just glue in another piece of angle and raise that up by 30 mils. You can do all you can do, but it doesn't seem to matter what you do. You're going to run into these little sort of problems, and you're better off to rectify them now, because there's no going back once I get all this down. The issue I've got here is that this module's only sort of 3 feet long, or a metre long. On the port side over here, I've had these big staircase modules up and down, in and out, and you've seen all of that through the videos. And by lifting them in and out, in and out, in and out, I've been able to work out that height, and then I did the floor. Whereas this one here, this is the only module that lives back here. The rest of this is all going to be furniture and bulkhead partitions that are going to be put in at a later date. So there is a big issue here. Deal with it now, and I won't have to deal with it later on. But yeah, I'm a little bit disappointed, a little bit frustrated. I'm going to nick off at lunchtime today. I've got to move Janet out of a unit in Sydney, and then come home late tonight. So I'm running out of time before I head away for a month or so. So I'm going to get this done today. Here we go again. Alright, this is going to be a pretty easy fix, but it's one of those ones that's going to really give me the shits into the time. I've got to put another piece of angle here. In fact, it's the actual perfect height of the angle right here, which means that now I've got two pieces of angle. The dilemma, do I cut it off or do I just leave it there? I'm thinking I'm going to leave it there. Because I've now got a channel there that I can use to route conduit. Look, I've got to have a conduit tube through in here anyway for power and for possibly for plumbing. But I'm thinking that would be a nice little chase for a tube, and I'm just going to leave it there. At the end of the day, it's not going to affect anything, it's done to the floor, but it is one of those things I wish I hadn't ever done. So before I glue this angle on, I'm going to get the power drill and just tack it so that I know where the holes are, so that once it's all laddered up, I can just sort of seat it in place and drive it home. Just get them started. So it's really the only way that I've found that I can effectively do this. So I've got to move everything back about 4 feet so I can get that head back in position. I'm going to do a little bit of work inside that today. I want to make sure that I can get to my blackwater tank bilge so I can get it all flow coated out, but it's going to be a little bit of module moving in. Let's talk about through holes. Got a bit of an issue because I've got foam core of 30mm right where I want to put my through holes under here, under this wooden mount here, and I'm going to use this hole saw to cut through the glass, and then I'm going to use a Dremel or a multi-tool to physically get the foam out so that I get back to the solid glass, which is about 4 layers on the outside of the hull and against the mould. And I don't want to drill through the actual hull, even though it's going to be a through hull ultimately and glued up in glass. I want to try to avoid breaking the seal of the hull until I get all the glass and all the epoxy in place. So you just can't believe the amount of stuff you need to do a tiny little job. Look at this, I've got a roller sander with scrapers, I've got cameras, I've got a drill, I've got a bloody multi-tool, a respirator, a set of earmuffs, and a goddamn bloody vacuum cleaner, just to do a tiny little bit of work. That's your day, and I've just spent 4 trips up to my factory to get all this, and I've still forgotten something. Okay, back again in the port bilge. I'm going to go down and clean this through hole fitting out and prep it all, and I've got to cut this limber hole as well. So that's all, the limber holes are now complete. They're all glassed in, sealed with epoxy, and then basically just got to trim them, and then once I've finished laminating all up here, I'm going to flow coat out this chamber, and that's the entire holes are now flow coat. I think I was caught saying once that I think my time in the bilge is coming to an end. It's now the 1st of August. That was the 1st of May that I said that. Fuck. Honestly, see the black marks on the wall there? That's from my boots sliding down that chamfer panel. Now, getting in and out of this, my knees, I don't think I've ever had stronger quads. Like my legs are turning into just tree trunks from being climbing up and down, and my knees are starting to suffer. And I know all of us can feel my pain because it's a challenge. It's freaking hard work, and I'm done being down in here. So today, I'm going to deal with the through holes and my accessory mounts in the blackwater bilge. It's really important that I get this done, because once I flow coat this, I don't think my time's done in here, although I'd like to think so. But the problem is, there's just so much detail that goes into this bilge work, so it's so important it gets done properly. Clean up. Now I've spent at least an hour sanding the inside rim of this to make sure it's beautiful and smooth, because I don't want any air bubbles in there. This is essentially a structural section of the boat. Every time I go to say something, a bloody truck drives fast, or an engine starts over here, or a jackhammer or whatever. So I make this nice and smooth so that I can really laminate it to perfection, because it is a section that the through hole, we don't want it having any sort of movement at all, and any sort of water that may get in there, we don't want it to undermine the section of through hole. And remembering, I'm going to glue a puck, a solid glass puck similar to this, inside there. once I've done all this laminating, and that's going to, now I can't get it out, but that's going to basically substantially hold that through hole fitting on a base around about probably 3/4 of an inch thick. So important to keep these things through now, because I don't want to be head down in the shower doing this at a later date. So I do realise the audio is a bit chronic in that last section there, guys. Look, I'm in an industrial area, and we have a mechanic who has 4 mechanics going with rattle guns. We've got cars driving in and out of the driveway. We've got big trucks delivering oils and deliveries for the cabinet maker and myself, and it's just a lot going on, so it's very, very hard for me to control the audio as much as I try, and I'm trying to use microphones wherever possible. Sometimes I'm just going to have to try to dumb that down and do some voiceovers, but I do apologise. I didn't actually think of it at the time, and certainly when I'm starting to edit it, I really do notice it. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm actually covering the accessory mounts with 300 CSM and then a layer of 600 double bias, so that I can have a waterproof piece of plywood that then I can screw pumps and mounts to and brackets. And the through holes themselves needed a couple of layers of 300 CSM, but you'll see me in a moment here. I'm going to be wetting out a disc of what we call Nitex. Now, this is actually what you closely refer to in the US and Europe as a 1708. It's a 300 CSM with 1200 quad attached to it, so it's actually about 4 times the thickness of your 1708. I think it's one layer 300 on each side, double bias, so it's around about 3 to 4 times the thickness and the strength. So I ended up putting 3 pucks of this inside the through hole, and then fed it back into that 300 CSM, ultimately to create an ultra thick section there. And then I'm going to glue some solid 8mm glass pucks to that with epoxy, and ultimately I can then mount my through holes with no fear of them ever having any sort of pivot action against the hole. And I apologise for that little bit of gel coat there. I assure you it was removed. My 10th trip down the hole today. At least, like, I get here and then I think, shit, I haven't got a roller, or shit, I haven't got a bloody a paintbrush, or I haven't got my catalyst, or I haven't got a stirring stick to stir the resin. Far out, man. So, right, glassing. I've just done the starboard side, and that's really the only through hole I have in the midships, and I'm going to have 4 at the back. The ones at the back are going to be a bit easier because I'm into solid glass there, right where the engine intake is, and the water maker ball valve that I'm going to put in place, and water maker probably have to come a lot later, depending on how much income I can earn in the next few years. But yeah, so I'll cut that out. I think ultimately I'm not going to reuse this. That's pretty thick. That's about 4mm thick, that glass. I've got some 8mm thick solid glass that I laid up there as the test panel for the hull that's going to be tested by AMSA. I'm going to cut some circles out of that because I did about 1 metre square, and I only have to send 600mm square off for testing. So that's where I'm at. I'm going to get these ones done, go have some lunch, come back in the afternoon and do the accessory mount. So I'm basically going hull, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. And yeah, it's doing me in. I just thought I'd show you the positions I get this tripod in to try to get some shots for you, because the angles, when you're in a metre wide space, to get angles is quite difficult. So often I'm sort of spending 5-6 minutes setting up a tripod every time I need to film something. So that is one of the positions. You can see there's 3 different levels, and that's the beauty of a tripod. You can mount it. I also have a clamp with a GoPro, and I'm doing this all with 2 cameras, 1 phone and a GoPro, and you know, that's my method, because I don't think I'd waste a good camera on this job, because really I'd probably destroy it within a couple of days. My phone's had about 100 falls, luckily never smashed it. But yeah, this is what has to be done to get you guys the critical shots. Alright, let's put this back in place so I can get a rough fit as to where it goes, because I'm going to have to put in some bracing before I flow coat the whole job. How good is that? So if you like it, put a lid on it. Let me show you the compilation of the lids that I've had to make just to finish this job. So first off, I've got my water tank. That goes there. Beautiful. And then my sewer tank. Spot on. Then my fuel tank. And then my salt. Okay, I've just spent a couple of hours tidying this up. So the blackwater tank's going to fit right here, and then I've got a through hole there for the discharge of the of blackwater and grey water. That's obviously going to be fed via a second macerator pump to be able to pump the pumps out, and it'll also have an overflow there so that I can use a Y valve to pump out any excess. The blue masking tape there, I'm leaving a margin of around 2 centimetres, or 3/4 of an inch, I guess you'd call it, to allow for epoxy to be able to glue to the lid of this tank once I finish the sealing. What I've done is I've masked it up so that I can then glue the lid of the water tank, which is sitting right here, down to the top of this water tank compartment here with epoxy. I don't want to mix polyester gel coat or flow coat that I'm going to use in this chamber here and along the top there. I don't want them sort of mixing, because once you put epoxy down, polyester gel coat or flow coat won't sort of adhere as well as it would otherwise. So this has had a good clean out. I'm going to give it a wipe with some styrene, and then I'm going to come in and flow coat it. You can see there I've got a little margin for error there, but the other thing I've got too is I've left the peel ply on the lid here in case I get any gel coat or flow coat on it as I'm painting this section out, and that means I can just peel it off and I'm back to the raw surface again. So a couple of bits of long-term planning I've been in there. I've been thinking about leaving the peel ply on there so that I don't contaminate it with epoxy. I never want to go from one chemistry to the other. I only want to go one way. You only want to go from polyester or vinyl ester to epoxy. Once you've got epoxy down, you're not really supposed to go back unless you are prepared to do the excessive sanding and prep needed to do so. Check this out, guys. My bilges are now totally flow coated out all the way through, and yeah, that's a bloody relief. That's a huge relief. I've been nearly 12 months in the bilges. Very happy, lad, very happy. And then over here on the starboard side, the flow coating's done right under the head there, all the way along here. The water tank is painted out, the blackwater bilge is complete. The bilge under the fuel tank is complete and the supports are finished, so all done, and that's still wet down in there, so not going anywhere near that, but bloody hell, man, I'm happy. Windy as tits here today. It's blowing a gale, the tent's shaking, everything's happening. I'm flying out tomorrow for a bit of a couple of weeks break and then a couple of weeks work in Greece, so I'll be doing a sea kayaking trip over there. But what I always like to do before I leave is put everything back together. I've had a pretty hectic week. I like to get everything back in place so that I can come back to a reasonably underwhelming sensation, because I'd be overwhelmed if I walk back into this chaos. But if I leave it all here, I'm going to regret it. So I'm going to basically start to put it all back together. So I can now lay the floors down, get all these modules back in place, start with the starboard side, and then I'm going to head over on the port side. I might have to get a bit of help to get that big fella in, but I want everything back in place so that when I get back I can get on with these bulkhead modules, start getting the bulkheads out, get them laminated, get them back in place for good. It's been about 3 months since I've had this module back in place, because I've been working on getting all of the bilges all flow coated and finished, and getting the tank sorted and everything. And I've just set it back in for probably what I would hope to be my second last fitment before it finally goes in once I demold, etc. It fits perfectly, and in fact the heights are right. It's tied into the flange of the boat over there. I mean, honestly, I couldn't have asked for a better fit. It's worth doing all those ups and downs. I mean, hundreds of times I've lifted this thing up and down, and you can see it there. It's fitting exactly on the lines that I've marked. I'm absolutely delighted. It's just brilliant. I'm going to go and see if I can garner some help to get this big stair module in, and hopefully everything's just going to piece together. I'm really praying that this last one is going to fit in perfectly, and then I can come back and really start to get moving. Feeling pretty good. I'm heading away, and I've got, close to what I thought I'd get done. Definitely, I wanted to get these laminated in, but that's a job for as soon as I get back, and then there's a lot to happen over the summer period. So I'm heading, we're in the end of winter now, I'm heading away back right at sort of the beginning of springtime, or in fact halfway through spring. And yeah, there's going to be a bit of heat coming in here, so I've got to try to change my day around, start ultra early, knock off, come back later in the arvo when it's a bit cooler, because summer's going to be a belter this year. We have had a stinker winter. It's been so warm this year. I just honestly have never experienced anything like the last few years here. It has been hot winters and incredibly hot summers. So yeah, something's going on. Not sure what it is. Don't want to speculate.